I have a few random thoughts. So Pete Hegseth retweeted that interview with that guy, Doug Wilson from Idaho, who's setting up a branch. He has set up a branch of his very, very far right Christian church outside of Washington, D.C. Pete Hegseth has been going there. But Pete Hegseth specifically retweeted a segment of that news story where these two white guys were talking about repealing the 19th Amendment. Their wives shouldn't be permitted to vote. They will vote alone and cast a vote on behalf of their whole family, but taking away the right of women to vote. And we're seeing all this gerrymandering stuff that's starting in Texas and spreading to other states. And the Democrats have left Texas to deny them a quorum. And now Donald Trump and Texas Senator John Cornyn are apparently employing the services of the FBI to go arrest these Democratic state legislators from Texas in different states, even though no crime has been committed. They're specifically using federal law enforcement as a tool and arrest and detention as tools against their political opponents solely because of those people's political beliefs. And we're seeing everything that's going on with ICE. If you haven't seen this week's episode of South Park, it's freaking brilliant. It's just such a skewering of the Trump administration, but it really importantly, demonstrates, like there's a reporter named Garrett Graff who he wrote a couple articles about here's what's going to happen with ICE when they dramatically try to ramp up hiring, and the hiring standards are going to tank, and they're just going to be taking whoever. That's what the South Park episode is about. And, and then Trump is also squawking this week about redoing the census. And all of these things are building up to the 2026 midterms. And, I think the overall scheme, I guess would be the word, is to make stealing the 2026 midterm elections legal. They're going to make all of it legal. Disenfranchising the votes of black and brown people nationwide, gerrymandering the hell out of the congressional districts. Because if Trump loses the House, and I've been thinking a lot about this, I'm like, do the midterms even matter? Because Trump needed the budget bill. He needed the big, beautiful bill. That's the only thing he needed legislatively. Everything else, he's going around Congress with his executive orders, and he's just ordering people to do things. And yeah, there'll be some more budgetary fights, but I'm just like, do the midterms even really matter? In the Senate, it matters because of the courts and the Supreme Court. The House, my God. Just imagine the Democratic base if the Democrats do take back the House in the 2026 midterms. They will impeach Donald Trump a dozen more times, at least. At least. And if Democrats take the House and the Senate, it's going to be 2 years of impeachments in the House and trials in the Senate. That's what it'll be. And no judges are going to get approved for anything in the Senate if Democrats take the Senate. And, but again, it's like I've said, one of my main concerns leading up to the 2026 midterms, because they can do all that gerrymandering stuff with the states or with the House districts. With the Senate, you can't gerrymander a state. It's a statewide election by definition. There's very, very little that they can do in the area of gerrymandering relative to the Senate race. You can't gerrymander an entire state. The population of the state just is what it is. But again, it's like my theory, and I really hope I'm wrong on this. I really, really hope I'm wrong. Donald Trump's popularity, he's losing 1 or 2 points in polling each month. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But that will have an impact on the midterm elections and control of the House and the Senate. And if we start getting closer to the 2026 midterms, like next spring, and if it starts to look like overwhelmingly Democrats are going to take back the Senate, then you're going to see a tremendous amount of pressure being brought to bear against Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court to get them to retire so that Donald Trump gets 2 more picks on the Supreme Court before the 2026 midterms, while Republicans still control the Senate. And I think he's going to put Emil Bove on the Supreme Court, and I'm 50-50 about whether or not his other nominee would be Aileen Cannon, because who's been more loyal to him than Aileen Cannon on the federal bench? Nobody has been more loyal to him than Emil Bove and Aileen Cannon, however you pronounce her first name. And I think he's angling towards getting those 2 people on the Supreme Court before the 2026 midterms. Because they can't do the stuff they're doing right now with congressional districts for House seats. You just can't do that stuff for Senate seats because those elections are statewide. So they're gonna just make all of this stuff legal. And in the incoming Supreme Court term starting the first Monday of October, I know there's already one case pending that the court is going to hear that is going to address some remaining issues with regard to the Voting Rights Act from 1964 or 5. John Roberts and his court a few years ago already gutted one of the most important provisions in the Voting Rights Act, basically writing a judicial opinion saying racism doesn't exist in the United States anymore. Yeah. And so now they're going to try to gut the rest of it. And the broader point in, taking away women's rights to vote, gerrymandering the shit out of the country, basically stealing the midterm elections, locking in a Republican majority forever, and telling the rest of us to just screw off, and his continued manipulations of the judicial branch, all of that is directly from Project 2025. He's hired a tremendous number of people into his administration who were involved in writing Project 2025. And all of this, everything that's happening is Project 2025. Every bit of it, man. And the next year, the next 12 months are going to be scary. They're going to be very frightening because, it's like he got the big, beautiful bill. He's got ICE where he wants them. The Supreme Court is letting him do basically whatever he wants. And for the next year and a half, Congress is not going to do anything to stop him because Republicans control the House and the Senate. And they know, and it's such a paradoxical thing because it's like the only thing that can save us is politics and voting. And, massive demonstrations are great, and I love those, and I love going to those and participating in that and meeting people at those things. But it comes down to voting, and the next time we get to vote is a year from November, excuse me. And politics is the only thing that can save us, and they know that. And seeing what they do in that arena over the next 12 months is going to be frightening because they have a real taste for it now, and they're not going to stop. They have a real taste for the authoritarianism that is now running this country.